Hello. Hello, members of the panel. I want to present you, first of all, this panel is called From Yeshiva to IDF, the recruitment challenge forwards that I don't know if we'll be able to do it even in 100 years, but we'll have half an hour to talk about it. Hello, Lali Deri, mother of the late Staff Sergeant in Reserve Saadia Deri, who was killed in battle in the Gaza Strip 1 year and 1 month ago, 13 months ago. Hello, Brigadier General in Reserve, Aminach, INSS board member for MOD and IDF senior official. Hello, Ariel Menashe, chair of Ultra-Orthodox Integration Forum. And hello, Inbar Harush Giti, former head of service direct directorate in the Ministry of Defense. So these days, I think it was even hard to prepare ourselves for these days because the news is writing itself even as we speak, maybe. And in fact, it truly is true because just before I came here to the stage, I saw more updates from the Haredi parties. So we are talking on different axes. The one axe is the of values, of Zionistic values that is very existential for us. And another axe of politicians and manipulations and money and the future, etc., etc. And in this context, let me start with you, maybe very shortly just talk to us about where we're standing at right now, and maybe you have something to tell us about the panel that was just held, as you told me, behind the scenes. Let's start with just a small bite. In the previous panel, they said a few things that I don't relate to, so let me just clearly say. I don't know why we need a conscription law. We have a wonderful conscription law with great sanctions. We do not need a new legislation, a new law. And everyone going towards a new law, let's go check very into the details of why they think we need one. They used to talk about why mixing Haredi with the rest of the people, pants on girls, yes or no. If you want to conscript Haredi men, the first rule should be that they enter Haredi and they leave the IDF Haredi, and they should be separated from the rest of the girls. Don't mix them, and then no problem, because if you put them in a regular battalion, now they need a specific kosher level. Just give them their own battalions. They will come and serve and stay Haredi. Just one thing about that. We need to be able to predict the challenge this will bring about in 20 years, because now we will clearly be able to extinguish this fire, so-called. It's something that we traditionally do. We'll now solve the problem, and in 20 years, we'll have 20 Haredi battalions. And then the rest of the army will be a minority, and we won't know what to do. The reason Ben Gurion exempted a very few Haredi men, about 400, very small amount, because you just said 20 years, so I remember. In 20 years between the two world wars, 85% of the Haredi Orthodox Jewry became Haredi. So that's 20 years. Let's let them maintain their Haredi life. Before delving into the details of this topic, I would like to talk to you, Lali, especially someone who would give us some perspective. Because you, and also Saadia, your late son, you could have been holding this from both ends. On the one hand, Saadia was absolutely a yeshiva student, a sage, and we've seen his pictures taken in the Gaza Strip. At any moment he had a free time, he would open a Torah book and study the Torah, and he was going to become a rabbi, and he was also, on the other hand, a battling soldier. Is it even possible? It is not only possible, it is something that is proven daily. Saadia, unfortunately, you only hear about him because he was killed. But at the moment, we have here in battle in Gaza. Last week, we went to visit Hadov, Saadia's friends, 400 days of reserves, and they prove this daily. And I want to say that it is not about holding the issue on both ends. Both ends are one. Torah and military service are the same. The moment we stop playing this game of dichotomy between the privilege and duty and order to serve, and between studying Torah, we are sinning very severely. it's a sin towards our history. Very true, but this is the Zionistic Torah that I grew up with, I was raised on, and I can accept it. Now take it to the average Haredi man. He does not understand. You're saying that this military service is not just something that is a duty, but it's also an Orthodox order, but the Haredi agenda and beliefs, the very basic, it just doesn't exist. So the question is, do we have a way to put them into some machine that changes their opinions? I think that the way we were all shook greatly, of course, nationally, but also on the personal level on October 7th. And each one of us, I should hope so, did take upon themselves some sort of responsibility since October 7th. I think that the young Haredi population, more exposed to the Israeli society as a whole, more combined, more integrated. These people are my hope, because they were put into a cage since the day they were born, where it was taken away from them the ability to make a free decision, which is the greatest gift we were given by God to me. And this free choice was taken away from these people. They're not allowed to think for themselves. And this thing is something that we slowly see happening, and these people are being exposed to people such as my son's late Sadia, like his Rabbi Yossi Goldberg, such as so many soldiers. Last week, we went to console Amar family and Fresh family, whose sons were also sage and Torah students and were killed in Gaza. They see these things and they say, we were lied to. We were simply lied to. But once again, this is something when we talk about processes, and we do not have time for processes. Today, we are at existential threat over our state, and today we need to have every son and daughter at the age of 18 will serve the country in some way or another. First of all, the IDF, because of the existential threat. Then, more civil service. Ofer Shelach mentioned about expanding it into different tracks in the service field. That is also security, etc., etc. There's no such a thing to me today that an Israeli man or woman will not serve in some way or another the state of Israel. And this is something that has to be done in different ways, theoretically. Now, if you let me give the floor to Ariel, because maybe he's the only one coming from this field, truly, genuinely. And let's say about Ariel that he broke a Guinness record. He's the only one in the world who went to study at a Haredi Yeshiva and was also a member of the Chief of Staff Forum. So this is quite rare, as you can understand. If you will, I must say something about what she said. Just 1 second, if I may. She answered what you said, but we must understand there's no halakhic problem, no Jewish law problem here. All of the great heroes of the Torah were fighters, not students. And in 1948, they all enlisted, of course, and all these sages also worked and not only studied. But this is not a religious situation. It's a cultural, societal event. Exactly. It's not a halakhic, not a Jewish law question. And some people don't understand it, but it must be said. We must take into account that many of the modern Orthodox, if you look at her son, for example, I'm sure that he made sure to follow Jewish law not less and maybe even more than many other Haredi members. But now we do agree, and I haven't heard Inbar yet, but I see her nodding in agreement here. So, no, she's now hedging that. Okay, we'll hear you soon. But we've agreed. To us, 5 people sitting here, everybody should be enlisted. Now, is it realistic? It's not a question of religious, but rather of society and culture. How do we make Haredi men to show up more and more? First of all, before speaking, I want to say that the Haredi leadership, who yesterday withdrew from the coalition during a night where we lost 3 of our brethren, only because they were not given conscription law, does not represent me or anyone following me in any way or form. Enlisting the IDF to us is not only about security. To us, it is also about being part of the Israeli society. I couldn't have been part of the Israeli society in the best way, not having gone through the IDF service. If I didn't have any shared values with my brothers and sisters, if I didn't understand what is the state of Israel, what is the IDF, any Haredi man enlisting to the IDF would be integrated much better, whether even if they go from yeshiva directly to the IDF. And many people from the Haredi sector do want to integrate into the Israeli society. But the biggest problem is that into the negotiation rooms, who are now negotiating over this are just like businessmen who are working the whole life and how to exempt Haredi men, and they're being asked how to integrate them. And if we truly want to, I mean, we can say so many cliches, how to round the circle, the square, etc. We all agree that they are completely erroneous, and their heart is close to the needs of the Israeli people and society. But they are the ones sitting in negotiation rooms. I wish I could convince those machers, these businessmen, to change things with the right kind of advocacy for the Haredi sector. And I want to say even more than that. We keep looking for these men who are not in the yeshiva, who are in the streets, who left the yeshiva, and we want to tell them to go to the IDF. We turn them into a be kind. So you're saying we're not making them be kind, but we're taking be kind to us, and then we tell them that they are lessers, but to us they are not lessers. Absolutely. By the way, who decides who will go and who will not go? We need to take them into yeshiva and tell them this. What you are now doing, do also in the army. You need to study the Torah and also serve the same way Lali's late son, who was a holy man, was able to do that. And when you do this, you turn them, rather being the be kind, the lessers, you turn them into a superior people. You tell them that you can conscript, you can join, you can enlist, and you can also study. And then you will see more Haredi men joining the IDF. You have one great follower already. No, this is very exact what he says. The moment you take away from someone, let's conscript them, but not the ones going to yeshiva. It means that they are fraudulent. They are conning you by telling you to leave the people going to yeshiva. Rem, we knew you were going to talk throughout the whole panel. We were right about that, but I do want to ask you a question. Though Ariel said something here that for me as a Zionist is conflicting me. He said integrating in the Israeli society. We grew on the myth of saying we are all in here together. Of course, I would have liked that, but during the war I understood that this does not exist together. This it's not like the way you enter Haredi into the army and you leave it Haredi. Culturally, it's not really a melting pot. I would like to see him Haredi, but what does it mean integrating, becoming part of the melting pot, part of this fantasy? For me, yes. But maybe we need to change the way we thought, our course of thinking. We need to look at the truth. For many years, decades, all different researchers sitting here in the audience have been trying to integrate Haredis, not only in service, but also in the professional market, in core studies, in the academy. And the State of Israel has put billions of shekels into this. And this project has failed. Completely failed in any area we look at. And we must say the truth. They say, thank you very much, Rem. One thing we can say about Rehem, it runs deep in his blood. He really... This is one thing we need to ask. What about this great failure that the best researchers and all of the budgets dealt with it, and they hardly touched military, that's true, but all of the other arenas dealt with it. And let me tell you what it means, that the way the conception of this process has failed. And I'm telling you, as someone who was part of the military, giving advocacy about the fact that we'll give them a different track and another way, and this will be the pivoting point where the Haredi mainstream will be convinced. I didn't fall, by the way, into saying that modern Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox can go together. These are competing ideologies. I am not trying to make them go hand in hand. I'm trying to have the Haredi society becoming part of the state, and the State of Israel was not able to do that. What does it mean when it comes to the process? The conception of the process was, we can see it in the objectives of the conscription law. The Ram is right about that. There's no bigger lie than that. You know what are the goals of the conscription roles? We give community a number of enlisting men that we need. Whose responsibility it is to bring them? Is it the community's responsibility? No, it's the IDF's responsibility. Does he know who they are? Why should they serve? They have no reason for that. They don't know. So the whole world of objections and sections and incentives, it's a great terrible lie. It's absolutely terrible. And I heard that people were angry about the fact that the presence and about fingerprinting them, etc. The difficulty I have with Haredi society is someone always saying that my children studying in the Hebrew state school, and my child doesn't know what Gemara means. It's not that he doesn't know how to read the Gemara. He doesn't even know it exists. He doesn't know about it, which is very shameful to the Israeli state, that people grow up in our education system not knowing what Gemara is. So you're saying to the Haredi become more state, and you're saying that the state people should know more about Haredi. I see why they don't want to become part of this. We have been long gone since being a melting pot. This ended a long time ago. The ability to hold onto my identity and preserve it is a decision by the system, and the IDF did not make this decision, not on time, not in the right volumes. Until October 7th, they didn't want to enlist Haredi men, and even until today they want to, but they don't know enough. They're on their way. There's studying. I mean, the Cheshmonaim battalion is a good start. We have the Hester yeshivas. It's something that is starting to happen. But Haredi society, Lali is telling us, something happened to us on October 7th. Lali, it happened to us, not to Haredi society. My love, it didn't happen. This event we're now going through, a Memorial Day and Holocaust Day every night, and we don't understand how the whole state was almost destroyed. This is something that is not part of the Haredi narrative. It's part of the serving population, and we must understand this. It's very sad, but this is the truth. And so the things need to change. We can't just say, let's fix and repair some clause to the conscription law for the 7th time. So I am saying we don't even need a new law, and I don't agree. When you say we don't need it, there is a law. There is a law that applies to me and my children and you and your children, and you're saying it should also be applied to them and their children, and will be sanctioned if they don't obey. So what Rem is saying here is it will be the first time where the IDF is speaking directly to the Haredi end user and sending them the draft order and saying, it's you and me. You're not speaking to me through your yeshiva, chief of yeshiva. You know, this exemption that they give them, this they call it, they say, go bring a note from your yeshiva. It's just a piece of paper signed by the head of the yeshiva, and this is all you need to be exempted from the IDF in the state of Israel for many years now. This is the only thing you need. So this is one advantage in what Rem is saying. But what is the disadvantage? There are no shortcuts. For about 50 years now, we've been encouraging all of the different governments from different wings. It's nobody's fault. We have been encouraging Haredi autonomy. We have been funding it, allowing the Haredi society to run its own business. What are we expecting from them now? I'm having a hard time with all of the articles now bringing this new narrative. This is how we raised our children. My child has a high profile. He wants to have a higher profile to become a fighting child. I raised my children this day, and they were raised in a different way. It's not their story. So the issue is much greater than the conscription question. There's a whole mechanism here. A week ago, I saw the great volume of budgeting for Haredi NGOs that have nothing to do with conscriptions. They have to do with socialization, and it comes from our tax money. And at the end of the day, this Haredi that we see in the Ponovich Yeshiva that we saw in this article this week, he's just the result of this. And you're saying, let's cut the mannequin. And after many years that I said, we'll find the way, we'll come from here and from there, and we'll have a more stately leadership of Haredi who have some responsibility and maybe some Zionism in certain. And today I'm saying this will not happen. It will not happen because Israeli Haredi is a relationship between Haredi life and Israeli life. And the Israeli needs to change its part in this relationship. I want to go now speak to Lali, but I see something is burning in you. Yeah, regarding what she said, I need to emphasize something because you keep saying, how will we bring them? There are two mistakes that we should not perform. One, we should not come and say, I'm inviting some of you, but not all of you. You can't do that. The moment you send draft orders to all of them, and you say, anyone who's 17 and a half, 18, I send the draft orders to all of them. And you have to advertise this and say it, and they will start showing up because they will understand at that moment that it's not altruistic. It's not something that says, come, you will be a B class. We will mess up with your matchmaking in the future. It's not about, you will meet your future wife in matchmaking. It's something that for Haredi people, they ask you, what's your background? I will give you someone from the same background. That's what it means. And if they go to the IDF and they are now considered lesser, so now his background and his family's background is damaged. So when you are talking about personal sanctions, this is a multi-generational sanction for them, because him and his children will have a lesser match. And so we say he will be drafted. He will not be drafted. He will be failed for future. This will not happen. Now I want to talk to Lali. As a bereaved mother, which is to me something that elevates you to some super status of looking at you. And this is something that I know from speaking to you in the past as well. As someone who sees the world of Yeshiva and Jewish life is very important to you, do you feel whole with the fact that in one stroke we will cut all of the mechanisms, all of the budgeting that we have made the ultra-Orthodox world got used to for decades, and they might, be very poor? First of all, I don't think they will become so poor. Absolutely not. Second, when you have a child learning how to walk, if you hold the child's hand the whole time, making sure they don't fall down, they will never learn how to walk independently. So this phase in the life, you just have to say, I trust you. You will be able to do it. And I will let go of my child's hand, and it will come. But excuse me for being less using terms of this law or another, but more of in the my valued conception. I think this is exactly the role that you are taking here. The last operation was called Margemot Gidon, after the name of the judge Gideon from the Bible. How he chose his battalion soldiers, he placed them around a water body and asked them to drink. And anyone who bowed down to the water to drink, he put them away and said, you're not going to be a good fighter. And anyone taking the water with their hands, cupping them up to the mouth, he said, you will be a fighter. Why? Because you don't bow down. Because you are only bowing down to the Lord. And in a normal, moral Jewish world that is following values, the first people who should have gone to fight are the yeshiva men. The first ones who should have left behind them the Gemara and becoming a Jewish soldier that is praying and holding a rifle should have been the yeshiva men, because they are the ones holding on to the quest, the why, this eternity, this Viktor Frankl's saying, if you have a strong why, you will know to deal with the how. Someone who studies Torah should, if they study Torah in the right way, in the clean way, he's supposed to be able to know how to carry any kind of how, and within that to carry the rifle as well as the tefillin. And my son carried all of the Torah books and all of the arms at the same time, and he was able to do it because the why was so clear to him. And this is what drives me nuts. The people are using the Torah in order to, in fact, violating the Torah in the name of the Lord. The fact that people are being falling under the burden every day, and young men are being killed daily, and some people are not able to breathe anymore. And they hide behind the Torah to justify this? This I will not bear no longer. And I think that this is a call that maybe will not be heard by all those Jewish businessmen or politicians. I don't care about that. I think that Haredi population should hear this voice. You are sinning to the truth. You are sinning to the Torah. And this is something that without this, how can we, I also have, we have this enlistment outline, etc. I also try forwarding this, but the basis is supposed to be of values. It's just one anecdote about my son Saadia, if I may. On October 8th, when he reached the community of Biranit in the north, a sweet Haredi man came there, gave each one of the soldiers a coin to put in their shoe, and they said, you are a mitzvah messenger, so nothing will come to your harm, because you're going to say that you're going to put this to charity once you leave the army. And Saadia was angry, and he said, I am all mitzvah. I'm wearing the greater clothing of Israel, the IDF fatigues. Do I need a cent, a coin? I am all about the mitzvah. I am all a messenger of mitzvah. And this is something that I know that the way I speak. You call me Orthodox Zionist. I don't think so. I wasn't born Zionist Orthodox. I was born in France to a traditional family. I never heard of Rabbi Kook until I was quite much later in life. But this is something that within my soul, within me, the more we speak this integration language between the Torah of eternity and between Zionism, the more and the more we'll be able to touch the souls of these Haredi young men. It's very interesting what you're saying. It makes me think of the fact that the Sephardi Jews are much more Zionistic Orthodox, even if they're not defined by Rabbi Kook, but they see a soldier, they weep for him. And by the way, the greatest deformation in the political world is Shas party, because they have completely emasculated this issue. And Ariel, you are an example of someone who grew within the Haredi society. You had a process with yourself. You decided to enlist the IDF, and you also decided to make it your business enlisting other young men. Tell us how you do that.
You know, when I understood that I want to be part of the Israeli society, then I drafted, and I was also in the drafting bureau in Jerusalem. And again, young ultra-Orthodox youngsters would come to me. And again, I didn't only accompany them and guide them on the day of drafting, but again, it goes forward many years. I kept in touch, even after they finished their military service and they integrated in Israeli society. But again, before we talked about a melting pot or not a melting pot, give us an example of somebody who comes to you. Why would an ultra-Orthodox young man come to you, to the drafting office in Jerusalem, and say, I want to be drafted? Because suddenly, one day the penny drops, that you understand you have to chip in. You have to give of yourself. Or whether it's, again, a youngster, wants to fight, because suddenly one day the penny drops and they want to be a part. They want to give of themselves and contribute. But the whole point of integration, just like those young ultra-Orthodox men say to me, just like those ultra-Orthodox politicians went out to work, went to the Knesset, they decided to integrate, and they decide for us what we have to do. We also want to integrate. Why don't they let us integrate into Israeli society? So that's why I'm saying, until we don't disconnect between the sector and the leadership, we will not see any change in the ultra-Orthodox community. I talk to young Orthodox people every single day, and many of them, the penny dropped on the 7th of October, and they feel differently, especially if it's from the Sephardi sector. They always have a cousin who went to the army and has a cousin who does reserve duty. They feel that they have to be part of it. They want to be part of this war of mitzvah, this war of commandment, of obligation for the land of Israel. Yes. You also in touch with ultra-Orthodox politicians, right? Because as in your capacity in the Ministry of Defense, what Ariel just described, do you agree? Or they sort of locked on something? Ultra-Orthodox politicians say that they represent those Torah learners, those who study in Yeshiva, which is, again, 50% of every year right now. We have great statistics about all of this. Now, we know that about the age of 25, it gets to about 30% of every ultra-Orthodox year that they see themselves that they will stay in the yeshiva. Again, they're not signed up for any other framework. Now, when you show these statistics to ultra-Orthodox politicians that are part of the negotiations, there are 70%, so maybe it's age of 21, it might be at the age of 23. I'd be happy to open it up and say, you know what, when they've finished learning, let them be drafted. And if they, why do I need it? Do you want to again undermine the army? But again, from a place of saying that there's even affection for this ultra-orthodoxy, we want to give them an opportunity. So we were sure that when we showed them the numbers, they would say, okay, let's find the way to do this. But the ultra-orthodox politicians are trying to preserve preserve the power of the community, meaning there cannot be collaboration here. So again, if you look at the sanctions that they agreed to, with Edelstein, that at the age of 18 or 19 or 20, the sanction will be that they're not allowed to, they cannot not be able to get a license, a driver's license, or get all sorts of discounts. But the amazing thing in their outline that they propose is that all those yeshiva students from the age of 18 till the age of 26, makes no difference what their status is, they will revert to being yeshiva students, because again, that's exemption. That means they're all exempt, and now let's look for those 4,800. Now, technically speaking, it's almost impossible. We have to conclude. So, Ra'em, we'll give you the concluded remarks. Last half minute. This is a conscription law for yeshiva students. You'll see what Yuli wrote. Some people said we have to, deal again. We make sure they learn core studies. If you make sure they don't have to sit in the yeshiva from 18 to 26, they'll go and work. The Haredim mother is not stupid. She'll make sure he goes and studies. But if she knows that he's not supposed to, again, learn, then she's not going to do anything about it. Also IDF has to do a lot of work to be able to recruit the ultra-Orthodox. Okay, I certainly hope things start, moving. Lali, Deri, Inbar, Harush, Ariel. Thank you so much to you.